After we recorded episode 10 of this season, that's Dr. Nanette Miner, and I continue to talk about leadership. After all, Nanette, and I'm reading this from her bio, she helps small to medium-sized businesses, companies, 100 to 700 employees. So if you have 701, don't call her. No, call her. To build succession plans and develop their employees for future leadership roles. The discussion that we had after we recorded the last episode made me ask her to join us again and talk about something that I talked about in previous episodes, and that is our obsession with leadership. What is leadership, and so on. I talked about that a couple of times. So get ready for another messy episode with Yoram and Nanette right after this. Welcome to The Trust Show. I'm Yoram Solomon, your host, the author of the Book of Trust and facilitator of the Trust Habits Workshop. My mission is simple. I want to help you form habits that build your trustworthiness, because the answer to this question will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? And we are back with Nanette. Nanette, thank you for being here again.
Thanks, Yoram.
You're supposed to say, thank you, Yoram. Thank you for having me here. It's great. Never mind. That ship has sailed.
Do you want to start over?
I'm going to jump into the first question. Is leadership a profession or a promotion? How do you see it?
I think it's a profession now. And that really was driven home like a week or two ago. Harvard Business Review, I guess, maybe Harvard Business Publishing, released a study that they said they've done in 2024 about the top 4 leadership skills that a leader today needs. And I forget what they are, but I remember responding to the release. It was on LinkedIn. And I said, these are such wholesale differences from what a worker does, what a manager does. Like, why are we asking people to change their behaviors and their perspective on things after they've gone up the ladder, right? Like, why don't we just train people on this stuff out of the gate? And then we just have a new category of people. There's people who are people leaders and unit leaders. And then there's people who are managers who help the workers in the unit get the work done. I don't think it's viable to have people ascend up this ladder anymore, because a manager's technically good at what they do, and therefore they can help and coach their workers to be better at the task. But a leader's a whole different skill set. And we tend to promote people to leadership because they're technically good at what they do. And they're not on the same plane. So why do we keep trying to make people be leaders? Why don't we just have a different category that these are the people who lead?
You brought up an excellent point. So, but typically this is what we do. What we do is we take the best salesperson and we promote them to be the sales. Well, we call it the sales leader, and I'll get back to that. But we promote them to be the leader of a group of salespeople. We take the best software programmer and we promote them to be the leader of a group of software programmers. Do we equip them? I mean, is it enough? Don't we still look at leadership as, you are the best in what you do as an individual contributor, so we promoted you to a leader because leadership is promotion? Do we do that a lot?
Because leadership is a promotion. And I think we have to nix that idea. Because if you think about it, why would you want to lose your best salesperson? Why would you want to take them out of the production role? And they probably don't want it either. I had a manager, like my first career out of college, I had a manager. I joined the company. I joined this particular department. This person was introduced to me as the manager. And within like 3 weeks, she called an all department meeting in the conference room and said, I just want to let you all know that I've told senior management I want to be demoted back to my regular job. She hated it. Like, she'd been in the job like 3 months at that point, but I'd been in the company 3 weeks, and she asked to be demoted. And I was like, you can do that? You can ask to go back to your old job. Like, I was young, right? So, and I guess it's still true today. Like, you just assume you go up and up and up. So who would go up and then go, oh no, I want to go back? It just seemed weird.
You know what? You brought an excellent point. I'm going to jump to question number, what is it? What did I have? Number 9. I listed a few topics to talk about, but because I did the same thing. I don't know if I told you, but I did the same thing. When I started with Texas Instruments, for example, I started in California. My wife asked me if we're going to move to Texas. I said, that's not going to happen. She said, what if they ask you to be a general manager of a business unit that's in Texas? Because at the time, I was really an individual contributor. And I said, nobody would ask me to do that. A year and 5 months later, exactly, they asked me to run a business unit. And I came in and I ran the business unit, and I did that for a year. The business unit did well in that year, but it wasn't because of me. It was because there were good people there. We had good technology. The market did the right things for us in 2004. It wasn't because of me. It was in spite of me.
Right.
And at some point, I came back from a week with the Center for Creative Leadership, and I came back and I said, I don't want to be a leader anymore. I want to go back to be an individual contributor. But is there a stigma? I mean, I think the answer is yes, but I want to hear from you. A stigma around going back from being a leader, from leading people to, I want to be an individual contributor.
Yeah, I think there is a stigma, and I think that reinforces my philosophy that we have to stop thinking this is a hierarchy and just say these are people who have leadership competencies, and a competent leader can oversee any unit because the leadership capabilities are different than running the unit.
Why do people want to be leaders? Because they want to be leaders.
I don't know that they do. I don't know that they do.
Okay.
I mean, I was a leader of others in a managerial role years ago and was very good at it and got compliments from my employees, which I thought was weird. There was one woman who said to me, you're the best manager I've ever had. And I was like half her age, but I hated it. I hated it. I did it well, but I did not like it. I don't like to be in charge of other people.
So we have that in common. We have in common that we hated it. What we don't have in common is that I don't think I was good at it. But
if I was tasked to be a leader, I feel like that's different, right? So I guess I just proved your point because I really was a manager, getting work. So managers get work done through other people, and I think leaders are more overarching, right? They collaborate more with the rest of the organization and understand the values and the goals and the mission of the company. And is my unit or my department working towards that as opposed to working?
So that's an interesting perspective. The distinction between leadership and management. To me, the distinction between the leadership, between a leader and a manager, is one word, and that's authority. A manager has authority, and he or she have authority because they can determine who gets promoted, who gets to do what, who does what, how much money you're going to get, and if I need to fire you. That's what a manager does, whereas a leader is someone who leads others to do certain things without having the authority. But it sounds like you have a little different perspective.
No, I agree with yours as well, but for this conversation, I would say our definition of a leader is what we think of as a hierarchy, so they're higher than a manager. But you're right. A leader is anybody who can influence others. Right?
But you brought an interesting point, because if we consider leadership as being able to influence others without having the authority, and management is you not so much influence as it control others with the authority.
Right.
But I don't think that in corporate America, when you say leader, you mean the classical phrase that we just used, because you have the leadership team. Who's the leadership team? It's not the people who can lead others, who can influence others, a group of people who can lead others, influence others without authority. It's the top managers, but we call them the leadership team.
Right. So it's a misnomer all the way around. We just need to start over.
Okay. So before we start over, I'll ask this question. Do we have an obsession with leadership? So I want to read a few statistics that I collected. EFMD in 2010, this is from 2010, but they said they did a study and they found that leadership was the number one topic pursued by more than 90% of corporate buyers for education, more than 90%. The second topic was general management. Leadership development industry is over $366 billion globally. There was a survey of 3,000 global HR and business leaders. 89% stated that leadership is important or very important issue. I have those on and on and on. Are we obsessed with leadership?
Yes. Don't you think so? I
Why?
mean, you and I are on LinkedIn all the time. Don't you think every third post is something about leadership? I mean, that could be too because we curate those things for ourselves. But yes,
Because of the LinkedIn algorithm, we get
yeah,
everything.
exactly. Scratch that. Never mind. But yeah, I do think we are, and I do think we are, and I do think it's because it's done so poorly. It's so obviously poorly done that we're constantly striving. The general population is constantly striving to figure out what is it and how do I do it and how do I teach others to do it and what does it look like in practice and how do I recognize it when it's done well. And so there's so many angles to leadership where I feel when I help companies with their leadership, with their leadership development, I'm really trying to make a well-rounded business person. So for years, I worked in training and development, technically still do, but I designed training for companies and then handed it back to them for implementation. I was an instructional designer. And around 2015, I realized that I was part of the problem of companies not having business people anymore because I had been designing all this training for a job. And so we have a whole bunch of specialists and we have a whole bunch of silos in organizations, and we don't have anybody who knows how to run the company anymore. And that's why I focus on small and medium-sized companies because it's so critical for them. A bigger company can kind of float for a while. Like my husband didn't have a boss for almost a year, a couple of years ago, and the company kept functioning. So bigger companies can kind of overcome that. But smaller companies, if you promote somebody to a leadership role, but they really don't have business intelligence, that the ability to lead others is not going to solve that, right? So I'm really concerned about smaller companies who don't have people with business intelligence and leadership capabilities to be able to guide us into the next generation.
It struck me as you tell me what percentage of people who are offered a leadership position, which we already know the term leader and manager are blurred, but what percentage of those being offered that position would actually say, no, I don't want it?
I think zero, probably, because it seems like you're disrespecting the person who chose you. You have to presume somebody put some thought into why they chose you. Although honestly, when I was promoted to a manager, I think it was just because, I had the longest longevity. I don't think they put any
That's
thought
another
into
good
it.
reason to be promoted, to be a
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah. They had to get rid of the person who was managing the department, and there I was. So I think that's how I got it. So I think you would feel like you were disrespecting somebody who chose you. Like how many people are proposed to for marriage and go, no, no, no. Like it's not a lot, right? Because you feel like you're disrespecting the person who chose you. And there has to be some kind of rationale behind why they chose you. And it does look like an opportunity. So who would turn down an opportunity?
Okay, now you talk. I would be, I don't think that I agree with you that the number one reason to not say no is because I'm afraid to disrespect the person. I would think that the number one reason is the first thing that comes to mind is money and
Right.
power. I
Right.
get more money. I get more power. I get to tell people what to do. I teach entrepreneurship classes, and you know what? The number one reason when I ask them, so I have a class, 40 students, and I ask them, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? If you want to be an entrepreneur, why would you want to be an entrepreneur? Reason number one, so I don't have so I don't have a boss. I don't want a boss. So it's all about the status, the position. I would say that the number one reason why people would not decline leadership position is, let's face it, there was a study that said that today the average, actually, I think it was 2017, so not really today. I'm going to guess it's even worse. The ratio between the salary of the CEO and the salary of the average employee, not the bottom, the average employee was 363 to 1.
I remember that. Yeah.
So the reason that people, I think, want to be leaders slash managers, because the terms are blurred, is money and power. It's not, I would say that the last reason to say no is to offend somebody who chose me.
Yes, but you might not get the opportunity again either if you say no once. Like maybe you just it's just not the right time in my life, and then they move on. So, but to your point, like you see, my tagline for the company here is leadership from day one. That's why I feel like we have to teach leadership skills the minute somebody walks in the door, so that they are prepared for that promotion when we choose them. But what most companies do is promote you first and then say, okay, now we want you to change your behavior.
So let me
That's a
ask
struggle.
Can anybody be a leader?
I don't think so.
Me neither. So how do we choose? How do we say, I think that this is going to be a two-part question. The first question is, how do we actually say, you know what, this would be a good leader, this one would not? And the second part is, how do I, the employee, say or get the tools to say, I don't think I should be a leader? I mean, why did I have to spend a year and move to Texas? Not that I don't enjoy Texas. Why did I have to do that to find that I actually
Right.
don't enjoy being a
Right.
manager or leader?
So one of the things that we do with clients is we start leadership development a lot earlier, right? And rather than promote them and then go, okay, let's teach you everything we could have taught you for the last 10 years, but we didn't. And one of the activities we do is just have up and coming potential leaders sit in the back row of management and leadership meetings, just so they can hear the kinds of things that are discussed and the kinds of dilemmas the company's up against and the decisions that have to be made. And right there, they can weed themselves out and go, yeah, I'm not interested in strategy, right? I want to be out doing the work.
And so, but then there is the stigma that I don't want to go back. So is there a way, and I remember struggling with this question back 2001. I did a summer at Stanford with other leaders. I was a vice president in a company at the time in California. And that was one of the things we all struggled with. How do we make sure that only the right people get promoted? One, without hurting their feelings, but two, actually having the tools. What are the tools? How can you tell this person is going to be a good leader and this one is not?
Well, again, it goes back to our leadership from day one philosophy. We give everybody the same leadership development. I feel that we call it leadership skills because we wait generally till we promote someone to a leader and then say, let's give you these skills. But if you think about it, teaching people to be a better communicator or a problem solver or a decision maker or working better collaboratively, like those aren't reserved for leaders. So why don't we just give everybody those skills? And I feel like if we start teaching people at 22, 24 years old en masse, so everybody has, I still develop curriculums, right? So now I'm like, year one, everybody's doing communication skills. At year two, everybody's doing business acumen. At year three, everybody's doing like self-improvement, self-assessment, self-management skills. It helps you, to know who could be a leader, because at year three, people should have mastered these skills. And if they haven't, it's not something that they're interested in. But the flip side of that is people who do enjoy leading others and enjoy, kind of setting goals and going for them and, what's next for me, those people rise to the top. But meanwhile, everybody else at least got better at communicating and understanding the financials of the company and who your customers are and who your competitors are and how do you make money. I can't tell you how many companies I work with where people at lower levels of the organization can't really tell you how they make money, or more importantly, how much money they keep. Like they just have jobs. They don't understand how the business runs, right? And I think that's why a lot of people move around too. Is like a job is a job. I could get this job somewhere else. But if you had a more vested interest in what your company did and how it fits into the industry and how your job fits into the company, I think people would stick around longer.
So here's an interesting dilemma. You're you're training someone to become a leader without any specific plan of that person becoming a leader. as they're going through the experiences of what leadership includes, they go, I don't think I want to be a leader, yet you think that they could be a leader. How do you resolve that? You try and convince them, or do you say, well, if you have a person here that says, I don't want to be a leader, and they do understand what leadership means, let's not force them?
Correct. But also, that doesn't really happen, because the people who do want it and enjoy it naturally rise to the top, and the other people naturally step back. So
Okay.
it helps you with a lot of DE and I. It helps you with having to make choices, or favoritism. Here's the requirements. People move along. Everybody moves along this path. Those who like it excel, and raise their hand and go, "Yes, I'm ready for a promotion." Other people go, "No, thank you." And there is no stigma, right? Because everybody had the same opportunity, and we didn't have to. We, as the leaders, didn't have to go, "Okay, who do we pick?"
But you just used the P word. You said promotion. Well, that's the other P word. There's profession too. They both start with P. I wish they started one with another letter. But you said promotion. So we're preparing people to, again, we call it leadership, but we really mean management. We really mean managing people. Should there be a training program that focuses on leadership through influence without authority?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you do that?
I mean, all leadership skills should be taught to everyone. You can teach influence. It comes down mostly to listening, right? And then incorporating people's perspectives or preferences into the solution. And if you can't do that, then a thorough explanation about why your point was valid, but we have to go this way because how many people go, well, management is so stupid. I don't know why they made that decision. Because they don't explain themselves.
By the way, if you ask me, even with someone who is not planned at any point in time to be a leader, should get a good visibility of the big picture and the understanding of the boundaries that they have to work with. Because to me, even as a leader, I always preferred for the people who reported to me to understand my boundaries, the boundaries that I have to live by.
Right.
Because once they understand my boundaries, I don't need to tell them what to do. They understand it by themselves. So without even a plan for them to get promoted.
Right.
Well, you see, I use the P word again.
Yeah. Well, because that's the way it's designed right now. I mean, if you and I are going to go out there and change the world, we got to move fast and change the normal ascension of titles. But to your point, I met a fellow 100 years ago who was a firefighter who then joined the city town council or whatever. And I remember asking him why he chose to do that. And he said, because as a firefighter, I thought they made a bunch of dumb decisions and, didn't take us firefighters into consideration with budgets and stuff. He goes, so I joined the council so I could make a difference. He goes, and then I learned why they make the decisions they do.
Which is great. I remember the same thing when I ran for school board and realizing a lot of things and a lot of the restrictions and a lot of the limitations. Is the Peter Principle still valid? That people get promoted to their level of incompetence?
I would say yes, but that is not with any firsthand intel.
You don't think that we're promoting a person and, as long as they're doing well here, we're going to keep promoting them and keep promoting them. And once because we have that stigma of not going back, so we end up promoting them to a level that they're not competent at. And then they get stuck.
Probably, but I don't work inside large organizations enough to know if they're still doing that.
That's right, 700 or less.
That's right.
Not 701.
So it was 700 or less. Basically, everybody is all hands on deck kind of methodology of running the company. Like everybody has an important role, and that's why it's so critical to make sure you have a pipeline of future leaders. Because if you lose one, another one doesn't just magically appear.
Yeah. Here is where, to me, trust comes in, right? I'm the best sales manager or salesperson. I'm the best salesperson. So I get promoted to be the sales manager. The thing is, I'm still the best salesperson.
Right.
And one of the things that research showed, part of it was my research, was that there is a correlation between the level of autonomy, the amount of autonomy that you get, and your both creativity and productivity. Even for salespeople, their productivity depends on the amount of autonomy they're going to get. You know, the moment you start telling them, do this, now do this, and they're not going to be productive because they're going to do what you tell them and not what they think is the right thing to do. So I'm better. Let me step back. So 47.4% correlation between autonomy and productivity or creativity. But to give autonomy, I found a 67% correlation between do I trust them or not. If I trust them, I'm 67% more likely to, and I'm just talking bottom quartile to top quartile, affects 67% of am I willing to give them autonomy? Well, the fact that I'm the best salesperson, that's why I got promoted, doesn't that automatically put me in a position that I'm not going to trust them because they're not as good as me, and therefore I'm not giving them autonomy, therefore they're not going to be productive?
Yep, I agree.
Well, that was a long answer for a very short question.
Okay,
we're going to try. This is
yes, that's why we shouldn't be. Oh, sorry. So we have two sides of this coin. Should we be promoting the best person in the department to lead the department, and are people getting promoted to their level of incompetence? And if we do the little edge of the coin, the question is, are we promoting people who don't really want to be promoted but won't say no because they feel like that's the next step in their career? For salespeople, I think it's a different scenario because salespeople are often compensated with commission. So why would I step away from controlling my earnings to, having a stayed salary? So I think that question is probably different for a salesperson, sales manager role, but probably not. It's probably.
Let's take a marketing person. Let's take a programmer, a developer.
Yeah.
You get the best developer, you promote them, but the thing is, you promote them based on individual contribution level,
right,
and not leadership skills. And now you're putting them in a position where they need to lead others, but they don't, because they don't trust them because they're the best and the others by definition are less good than as they are. So they don't trust them. They don't give them autonomy. They don't get creativity and productivity. We lost the best individual contributor and we gained the worst manager.
Yeah. And we're lowering the productivity of the rest of the organization. But again, if you do your leadership from day one, then you have a stellar contributor who also understands their leadership responsibilities.
But if there's, well, okay, I'll take that. So it might balance it to some degree, especially the ability to be willing to leave the technical aspects of the job, because you have to remember that once you are a leader or managing people, once again, the terms are blurred. You cannot be the best programmer anymore. You cannot be the best marketing person. You have to let go of that. And again, this goes back into leadership is a profession, not a promotion. You have to focus on, I am a leader now. I'm a leader of people. I need to lead people. I don't need to tell them what to do because I'm the best programmer.
Yep. And I should at least let them struggle for a bit. Because if I am the best, they're probably going to come to me and say, I have a dilemma. Can you help me? And a good leader would go, well, why don't you, try working that on your own for a couple of days and then come back to me. Or what do you think you should do? Right? That sounds
more like a psychologist, a therapist. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, a lot of it is. It's like, I'm supposed to be growing you as an individual and your capabilities. If I keep jumping in and solving the problems for you, then I've got an unpromotable staff, right? I kept everybody at the level they were when I stepped up to be their manager. So it's a mindset, and you have to switch that mindset early. I always say it's like teaching your baby manners. You start teaching a baby manners before they're even verbal. They have no idea what you're saying, but you keep reinforcing it and reinforcing it. I think you have to teach leadership skills that same way because it's a mindset. And if you think about it, when we're coming up through school, we're going through college, we first join an organization, generally we are taking direction from other people. So we're in that mode to wait for somebody to tell us what to do or point us in the right direction, and then giving people the authority and the autonomy to say, you can make your own decision. You can solve your own problems. You don't need to wait for me to give you permission. That right there is a mindset. And then the next mindset changes. And how do you help other people to be successful in their roles? Because that's your new job as a leader.
So here's an interesting thought that I had. If I want to, and you already know that my focus is trust. How do I resolve the trust issue if I'm the best? I'm the best programmer. I'm the best marketing person, and I have marketing people who are not as good as I am. So how can I trust them if they're not doing the right thing because they're not me? So one way to resolve it is to say, since we are now accepting that leadership is a profession, why don't we take the best marketing person? And it really shouldn't be the best marketing person.
Correct.
It should be the person with the best leadership skills. And we don't care if they're a marketing person, and put them in charge of the, you wanted to leave sales on top of the research and development group, because a leader is a leader.
I agree.
But then the issue is, and I remember one of the first things that one of my direct employees told me when I became the leader of that 89-person group was, you don't understand what I do well enough to lead me. But well, if we're taking someone who's only good at being a leader, or not only good at being a leader, but very good at being a leader, just don't understand this business, are we screwing that business up by putting somebody who doesn't understand it well enough?
I don't think so. And I'll tell you who taught me this, Jack Welch.
Okay.
I just read a book of his.
How old are you?
Very old. I met him once. Well, I didn't meet him. I worked for GE as a consultant, and he was leaving a conference room, and I was walking into the one next door. So I saw him once and realized how short he is, because I'm very short. He was basically my height. Anyway, Jack Welch in his book Winning said, I didn't know locomotives. I didn't know aviation. I didn't know, healthcare. I knew people. And that's my contribution to GE, was understanding how people developed and could blossom more under my tutelage. And I didn't have to understand those businesses.
That is very interesting. But one thing that really, really bothers me is, and I don't think we talked about that in the last episode. I'm pretty sure we didn't, the last we recorded together. If I told you that a leader said this to their employee, or employees, not just one, plural, an employee comes to them with an idea, and the reaction from the leader, the CEO, is, this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Would you call that person a good leader?
Absolutely not. Their response should be, could you come back to me with some more data? I don't quite understand it yet.
4 people that I know read their biographies and know that they use those statements are Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, what's his name, Microsoft, Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs. And we can't argue putting them as CEOs created, in Elon Musk's case, a group of companies that exceeded $1 trillion in valuation. For the others, every one of their companies exceeded $1 trillion in valuation. How can we say that's a bad leader?
I will add a small caveat to that, in that those people are not leaders, they're entrepreneurs, and those were their businesses.
Interesting.
So leadership was foisted upon them. They weren't taught it. They by default had to become leaders. But to your point, how did people stay and continue to work with them when they were devalued?
Well, I think that, we overstate sometimes that people stay with the company because of the leader. I enjoy the leader. I'm going to leave if I don't enjoy the leader. I enjoy the culture and all.
Yeah.
A lot of people stay there because they believe in what they do, they believe in what the company contributes to society, and they really enjoy the upside. Because if I got stock options and I'm in a company that goes from $100 million to $10 billion in 5 years, I get to see the upside, and that's part of why I'm here, and not necessarily to be covered by, I don't know what, by my leader.
Yeah. Yep. That's a very interesting lane. We should go down that a different time, like the demarcation between a business owner, founder, and what they get away with, as opposed to someone we call a leader.
That's, you know what? You're on. We're gonna do an episode. If for only one reason,
It's becoming the Yoram and Nanette show.
I know. Maybe I need to rebrand it. But I had one of my students right now. As you know, I teach entrepreneurship at SMU. One of my students come to me and ask about this leader founder dilemma. And that is, and he sent me an article about founders becoming leaders. There was a research article, and I look at that article that actually said that the best ones are the ones who actually started the business, and not necessarily the ones that you drop. And I think in Apple's case, we saw that because Steve Jobs started the company, then it was kicked out, then it was brought back, and the company grew only when he was there.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll talk about that another time. We're already at 35 minutes, so I think we're going to wrap it up. I did go through everything that I wanted to ask. So, Nanette, not everybody listening to us now heard episode 10. So tell us a little about you and how they can reach you.
Sure. So I own a company called The Training Doctor. And like I said earlier, I did instructional design for many, many years. And then around 2015, there was kind of a perfect storm where the U.S. Census said that all the boomers were going to be out of the workforce by 2030. I realized that I had been designing training for jobs and not for well-rounded business people, and that there was going to be this large gap of large influx of young people who really hadn't been developed into leadership. And I said, I have to start doing leadership / succession planning. I did leadership development for a little bit and then realized nobody was doing it purposefully enough. Like they didn't have a plan. They were just giving people leadership skills and hoping it kind of coalesced later on. And so I dug my heels in on, you need to know who's in the pipeline, what development they need, why you're developing them, and then do the development. And that means it's much more individualized than us, sending. For one of a person I interviewed recently, they put 7,000 people, 7,000 first line supervisors through communication skills training a couple of years ago. And I'm like, what could that possibly have cost you? And how do you measure the ROI of that? 7,000 people you put through the same training? So, okay, long story short, I help companies with their succession planning, figuring out who's in the pipeline. Do they have people in the pipeline, or are they going to have to look outside the organization to bring in leaders? And let's do that before you're ready to retire or exit, and then turn around and go, oh, there's nobody behind me. So I'm hoping smaller companies, looking towards the future, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, and planning for how they will successfully exit their business and not just have to close the door and go, well, that was a good run. So how can they reach me? LinkedIn.com. I'm the only Nanette Miner there. That's the easiest place to find me.
Yeah, I have the advantage. I'm the only Yoram Solomon, but and you're not going to take anyone with 701. Your first question is you don't.
No, they'll have to fire someone before I.
you have to fire someone before you qualify to work with me.
Well, actually, I'll tell you why there's that cutoff, because for this to be successful, for succession planning to be successful, I need all the senior leaders / decision makers in the room, and I need to be able to look to them eye to eye. Because even if there's one person who says, and this is more likely than not, that's not my problem. Right? I'm retiring in 3 years. That's not my problem. I need everybody to be all in, and at a larger size organization, then I can't get all the decision makers in the room. And there's too many layers of management.
I was joking about the 701, but I have to admit that I admire that you do that you cut this off. It reminds me, I facilitated a strategy planning session for a company, and we decided that the market segment we want to go after should be between $200 and $500 million. And it's like, to everybody is like, why do you cap it at 500? because above 500, it's a different type of market. It's different dynamics. You can't create a strategy that would help you get into a $200 million market or a $2 billion market. And you're doing the same thing. So I actually admire you for doing that. You told us how we can get a hold of you. Let me just summarize this episode. We talked about, we still look at leadership as a promotion rather than a profession. The lines do blur between the definition of leader and manager. We call it a leader, we think manager. We do have an obsession with leadership. There is a stigma in coming back from leadership. And Nanette is probably leading in helping people realize, first of all, learn to be leaders before you put them in a leadership position, especially since you focus on succession planning, right, which makes it important. You got a lot of time to do that, but you focus on succession planning. And you don't disagree with me that maybe we take the best marketing manager and make them the leader of the planning department because they need to focus on being a leader, and you use Jack Welch as an example. So Nanette, I'm pretty sure that we're going to have another episode together on the Nanette and Yoram show, the doctor's show.
Not to be confused with any other Nanette and Yoram, because apparently there's none out there. So
yes, at least not on LinkedIn. And if it's not on LinkedIn, it didn't exist. It doesn't exist. So first, thank you for being here again. I really appreciate you. I like how we can have a messy conversation and come up with new ideas.
I don't think it's messy. I think it's a normal conversation.
No, it just, we let it go wherever it went. Well, to our audience, this is it for today. I hope we made you think a little differently about trust and, in this case, leadership. May trust be with you. This was The Trust Show. If you enjoyed this episode, like it, subscribe to this channel, and get informed when I release more episodes like that. And remember, the answer to this question will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can you be trusted?